guys. So ever since I started this channel, people have been requesting that I do conspiracy theories. And let me tell you, that is the last thing I ever thought I was going to do, because I'm just not Shane Dawson, you know? Like, he's kind of got the conspiracy theory market down. But I have finally decided that it's time for me to do just one, you never know what will come in the future though, conspiracy theory. I do not know how I became so obsessed with this, but I have been thinking about this ever since I was in Mexico. One day, it was just like between times of the pool and dinner, and I was scrolling through my Facebook and I found a thread about this, and I just became so interested. Now let me tell you, Mexico was not the right time to become obsessed with the Madeleine McCann case, because it is a time when a child was taken or disappeared while she was on vacation. So I totally freaked myself out, and I totally was freaked out for the next couple weeks, but then I watched the Netflix series on her disappearance. So now I feel like I'm informed enough to tell you guys what happened and allow you guys to make an opinion of what you think happened to her. So I do think this is going to be a pretty long video. I'm going to try to condense it as much as I can, but there are so many little details in this case that are going to be very hard to leave out and have this story still make sense. So I hope this all makes sense to you guys. I'll try to insert some pictures to give you some ideas what the place looked like and what she looked like. Before I get started, I do want to mention that in no way am I trying to implicate anybody in this case. There's no way this is going to end up becoming a big deal, but I know that some people on Twitter have gotten a lot of hate for speaking their opinion on what happened in this case, because it is definitely something that's in the hands of the police and shouldn't be in the hands of small media outlets. So that's what I'm saying. I am merely reporting facts that I have found on different websites and Twitter threads. These are not necessarily directly from police reports. So straight up, most important fact of this entire thing is that Madeleine McCann disappeared in 2007 from a resort in Praia da Luz, which is in Portugal. She is absolutely the most reported on missing child case in modern history. To this day, over 10 years later, still no one knows what happened to her, and there have really been no big suspects or leads in this case that have helped the police to determine what even might have happened to her. So I think how I'm going to do this is I'm going to give you a very brief summary of the full story, go into some of the sketchy details, and then at the very end of this, I'm going to give you guys the two biggest theories of what may have happened to Madeleine McCann. If you want to jump ahead to that, I will leave a timestamp here showing you where you can get to just the theories of what happened to her. So basically, Madeleine was one of many kids on vacation this year. She was with her parents, a bunch of their friends, and all of their kids at this resort in Praia da Luz. Every night to go to dinner, the parents put their kids to sleep in their room and would go to this tapa restaurant which was on the resort and eat. During this time, they'd each take turns checking on their children to make sure they're okay. Now, it is undeniable this is irresponsible. You cannot leave a ton of children alone in their rooms at night, but we're gonna have to get over this fact in order to talk about the rest of this case. So on the second last day of their trip, things are going as usual. They leave the kids in their room for dinner and they head out around 8:30 p.m. to go down to the tapas restaurant. Then, later on the night at around 10 p.m., when Kate goes to make her check of her children in the room, she comes back screaming that Madeleine is gone, she is missing, someone has taken her, and this is where the entire case really takes off. Now, that is the briefest, most condensed summary of the actual disappearance portion of things, and I want to just jump away from that and start talking about all of the little facts that come together to make this a little bit more interesting. At breakfast, on the day that Madeleine went missing, she asked her mother, "Why did you not come into our room last night when we were crying?" And when she said we, she's referring to herself and her brother. And this makes people wonder if perhaps something had gone down the day before as well. Perhaps someone, an intruder, had gone into their room the day before the actual disappearance occurred. Now, interestingly enough, the McCanns claim that from their seats at the tapas restaurant, they could see their room. This is absolutely untrue. Many people have gone, sat in the exact place they were sitting, and it is impossible to see their room. All you can see is the top of the building that they had been staying in. Another detail is that throughout the investigation, the parents claimed it was about 55 meters from where they were sitting to their room. And this is absolutely true. 55 meters, but 55 meters across a pool, across shrubs, across trees, across gates. It would be about 82 meters of a walk if they wanted to walk to the actual door of their room. Now, one of the things that came around early in the case was something called the Tanner sighting, and this was a time when Jane Tanner, one of the other parents on the vacation, had gone to check on her own children. A couple days after Madeleine disappeared, she reported to the police that she had seen a man walking away from their apartments, holding a child across his arms like this, who had been wearing the exact same pajamas as Madeleine. Now, it is a little bit sketchy and people have been wondering why she didn't report this sooner, but it's of course possible that it just didn't occur to her at the time the importance. Basically, this was debunked years later when a man came forward saying that he had been walking home from like the nursery slash daycare center of the resort with his child, who had been wearing the exact same pajamas according to him at that time. Now, it does seem a bit bizarre, it took him years to come out with this information, but that is how the Tanner sighting theory was debunked. Now, it did come out later in interviews that were done with Kate and Jerry that they claimed they had left their patio door unlocked so that it would be easier for them to get into their room more quickly to check on their children. So basically the front door was on the opposite side, so to have walked around that far would be an even further walk from the tapas bar. So they had left the door open for easy access to the kids. Now, unfortunately, this easy access for them to the room also equaled easy access for an intruder. Something that comes to mind for me is that anyone who was watching them check on their children would have seen that they were entering through this patio door and not locking it behind them, and could have very, very easily just gone into the room after them. So one of the biggest issues in this case is the Portuguese police essentially just being incompetent. The first suspect they named was someone early in the case named Robert Murat, who had been actually trying to help out the police and the McCanns in discussing things. Basically, there was a bit of a language and cultural barrier, and Robert Murat, who was living in Pride Luz at the time, offered to be a translator for them. Since the police couldn't come up with any genuine suspects, they said, hey, Robert Murat's gonna be our suspect, and then they actually tried to claim that he was a pedophile and had tried to steal Madeleine. So one of the sketchy details that had definitely implicated Kate in the investigation was that when she went to check on the kids and returned to the group, she came back yelling, "Madeleine's gone, someone has taken her." And this really set off people, because why would your first assumption of what happened to your kid be that someone has taken her? Why wouldn't you assume that she had wandered off or something? Assuming that someone had taken her was a huge leap to have made, and it made people wonder whether Kate was trying to hide something, cover something up, or maybe she even knew who had taken her child. Now, there were just some genuine mistakes in the investigation by the Portuguese legal system. So, for example, it's assumed that the McCanns called essentially 911 over there, or reported the case at around 10:30 p.m. It took until almost 1 a.m. before the investigators even arrived at the hotel. So this gave tons of time for evidence to be either intentionally or unintentionally destroyed. All these adults were going in and out of the room, footsteps, fingerprints, all of the stuff that made it very, very difficult for there to be forensic evidence afterward. As well, the window, which the McCanns claim they think Madeleine may have been taken out of, was closed and opened several times, so the fingerprints there were ruined. Now, the Portuguese police do admit they did make one humongous mistake in this investigation, and that was they did not request that land and sea borders be closed. Now, Portugal is relatively small, and it wouldn't have taken that long for an intruder or an abductor to have taken Madeleine out of the country. So in the time it took them to actually report this as a global missing persons case, Madeleine could have been taken out of the country and completely out of the realm of places they could have been searching for her. So a few months later in the investigation, the Portuguese police, you guys already know my opinion on them, decided that Kate and Jerry were going to be their new suspects. And my opinion on why that is because Kate and Jerry had been very involved in the investigation, pushing each and every day for them to be searching for Madeleine, which, I mean, I feel like that's reasonable. They probably wanted to find their daughter. But the police, through reviewing interviews of Kate and Jerry, found that there were a lot of mistakes in their repeating of their accounts of the events of that evening, and they named them suspects in the case, which meant that once they were named suspects, the Portuguese police completely stopped searching for Madeleine. And at this time, there was no one looking for her, except the general public of the world, I guess, but there was no one officially looking for Madeleine. And at this time, the McCanns had to resort to hiring private investigators while they were being named suspects. A little while after this, it was decided there was really no case against the McCanns that could be made with real hard evidence, especially since so much had been destroyed in the investigation, and they were let off the hook. And then at this time, they announced that they were done searching for Madeleine and they were closing their case for the time being. I believe now, however, it has been reopened. So now that you guys have all those details, I want to give you the two most believed theories of what happened to Madeleine. Now, one is that there was an intruder, and the second one was that she was murdered specifically by her parents. And all of this I got off of a very, very popular thread by St. Clair on Twitter, which I'm gonna link below so everyone can check it out. It has a lot of what I would say are less true information, but it has a lot of very true stuff as well, so definitely go check it out. Lots of details I didn't include here, and it has a lot of the same stuff too. So getting off to the very first theory, the intruder theory. So the intruder theory is perpetuated by Kate McCann because she claimed that there's no chance that her daughter would have left the room without Cuddle Cat. Cuddle Cat was her favorite stuffed animal. She never went anywhere without it, and she says that if Madeleine had wandered off, Cuddle Cat would have gone with her. So when the Portuguese police tried to say that it was simply that Madeleine had wandered off and that she had gotten lost somewhere, this was Kate's way of saying that that was absolutely impossible. Now, apparently in this area of Pride Luz, it was very, very popular for burglaries to occur. Apparently it was less popular to occur in these resorts, but it did happen there occasionally as well. So the theory is that a burglar entered the room accidentally woke Madeleine up and then felt as though he had to take her. On a bit more of an upsetting note, it's also theorized that she was taken by a pedophile gang. Apparently this was very common in the area at the time, and specifically there had been a sexual assault in the exact building Madeleine was staying in just a couple years prior by an entire gang of pedophiles. At the same time of Madeleine's disappearance, it was reported that there was a group of men going door to door claiming to collect money for charity. Now, it's suspected that this group, instead of collecting money for charity, was actually spying on houses that had children, because a few days later it was reported by one woman in particular that a man who had come to her door was found the next day in her home trying to take her daughter. What seems a bit bizarre to me is that if this was going on, why were people not being warned of this? Why was Madeleine's family not aware that there was this risk? No matter what, it was irresponsible for them to have left her in the room. But if they had known that there was this risk of sexual assault and abduction in the area, I don't necessarily think they would have left her there. So basically how that theory closes is in just a couple different ways. Either the intruder took her and killed her, took her and sold her, or took her and still has her. No one really knows what happened to Madeleine in the end, so there's a wide range of possibilities of what happened to her at the end of that theory. Now, the next theory is definitely the world's favorite theory, and it is the one that implicates the McCanns completely. It is a theory in which they killed her and they had to cover everything up, essentially. So the idea that they killed her is that they may have overdosed her on sleeping medication. And the reason people think that a sleeping medication was used on the children is because the grandparents of the McCanns had mentioned in an interview that if the children had been drugged in any way, it would have been via sleeping medication. So the theory is that when the McCanns went and drugged Madeleine, they gave her too much, discovered she was dead, and had to come up on the spot with a way that they weren't going to get in trouble for doing this. So some of the facts that make the McCanns look a bit more guilty in this case is that they barely looked for Madeleine. So they figured out she was missing around 10 and they stopped looking for her at basically 1, went to bed, and then got up again at 6 or so to look for her. I think that if I had a child who was missing, I would never stop searching for her. But that's just me. So what people are trying to say is that perhaps since they stopped looking for her, that was an indication that they already knew where she was or already knew what had happened to her. So the theory of what they might have done with Madeleine is that they killed her, they stored her, and then they got rid of her almost a month later when they rented a car. Now, the reason this rental car comes into question at all is because in the forensic investigation, they had a dog who was trained to find the smell of death. And when they brought this dog into the McCann's apartment, the dog was finding the scent of death everywhere, on the bed, on the toys, on the clothes. And then when they brought this dog to the rental car, the dog found the same scent in the car as well. So the idea is that the McCanns could have disposed of her body at a later date, having used the car. So one of the other reasons that people think the McCanns knew their daughter was dead is that they always referred to her in the past tense. As soon as Kate McCann began talking to investigators and interviewers, she said, "My daughter was lovely, my daughter was beautiful, my daughter was perfect." All indications that they're speaking of their daughter in the past tense, and they may have already known she was dead. Anyway, that theory is definitely the one that makes the McCanns look more guilty, definitely the one that gets me a little bit more fired up, but no one really knows what happened. Either way, people just want to find her. So it's not really that important about whose fault it is at this point, although I guess that'd be important in the future. The more important thing would just be finding Madeleine now. So I definitely don't want this video to be interpreted in any way of me saying that it's one person's fault or another person's fault. I just want to give you guys the facts, show how sketchy this entire case is because there are so many bizarre parts of it. And I just hope this is an interesting video. It definitely is something that gets me all like fired up. Like usually conspiracy theories, I'm just like, wow, that's not true, but this is a real true thing. Madeleine McCann is still missing and it's more than 10 years later. So this is definitely a crazy case, but I hope you guys enjoyed this video. In the future, I'd love to make a couple more conspiracy videos. I could definitely do one on JonBenet Ramsey. That's another one of these cases that I find very interesting, and really there are tons of other abduction cases. I just don't want my channel to turn into some kind of gloomy, sad, like, let's talk about a bunch of kids being killed or taken, but either way, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I look forward to making more in the future for you. Definitely let me know in the comments down below what you guys want to see next. I do have a couple more interesting videos coming soon now that I'm done school. I hope you guys will subscribe to my channel and definitely give this video a like, and I cannot wait to see you guys in the next video.